When you go back, the Forward Markets Regulation Act essentially was an act to prevent hoarding. It had its origination from the Defense of India rules. So the act was meant for stopping hoarding, to control prices, and the circumstances then after independence required maybe such kind of a legislation. So starting from 1947, let us say till about 1997, almost 2000, the act was essentially an act meant for controlling things. The change happened when, I think in the mid 90s, when the government said they'll set up a committee under Professor Kabra, and the Kabra committee report is one of the very well documented report in this space, which said that we must have a good commodity futures market in this country. And to the credit of that committee, they said that the commodity markets must focus on agri commodities. And they said for the commercial success of the exchange, non agri can be allowed. So that is what the focus was, and that set up a huge change in the way we looked at commodity markets. So between 1998 to 2000 onwards, when all this happened, 2000 the government decided to set up the commodity markets, the futures trading. Forward Markets Commission suddenly became a hero of those days. The Kabra committee is talking about futures market in agri commodities, but we don't have a spot market. The spot market, what I call, is balkanized. Small mandis all over the place, small quantities, small lots, small farmers, marginal farmers. I said, in the absence of a proper spot market, how can the futures market survive? So I was a little skeptical at that point of time, and therefore my passion, my dream was to see if we can do something in the spot market space. The opportunity came after a couple of years of mine in the exchange. I said, why not we make an attempt to see if we can bring the same transparency of the futures market, the same technology in this futures market in the spot market. And we started in a very small way in 2011 in a small place called Gulbarga in Karnataka. And Gulbarga became a very famous destination for people to visit from all over the country to see how the small agriculture market could take technology which was actually working in a sophisticated exchange, and that became a kind of a poster boy for reform in the state, in the space. As far as auction of commodities is concerned, discovering a price is concerned, yes, I think there's far more transparency, but markets are not about just auction. Price is one part of the action. Markets are more about delivery, payment, dispute resolution. We have not been able to traverse much on this, essentially because the agri markets in the country are political in nature. There's an elected committee, so there are lots of pushes and pulls there. So we have not been able to go beyond the auction process. But Indian markets, when they had to start futures trading in 2003, they decided that Indian markets will be anchored to the physical side of it. They will not allow financialization beyond what is necessary, and therefore they conceived compulsory delivery, giving delivery and taking delivery as an inherent part of the futures market settlement practice. I think that changed the way the Indian markets started, and that remains so till now. I would look at it from three perspectives. The first one is an economic perspective. The second one, what I would call as a regulatory perspective, and the third one is what I say is a perceptual perspective. Let me talk about the economic perspective. Economic perspective essentially would be that as long as the futures market, participants in the futures market are looking at the underlying supply and demand of the commodity, the futures market should not really be a cause of concern for driving of prices. That would, of course, come with a condition that the commodity futures must be very firmly anchored to the underlying physical market, which is true in India. The second one is regulatory. So when I talk about regulatory, I may be contradicting myself, but let me explain. If you do not regulate the futures market carefully, then there is a cause of worry. But I would not say that is a cause of worry in India, because our markets are far better regulated. We have instruments like margins, we have instruments like position limits, we have instruments like trade break, taking a break from trading. All those instruments are available, all those policies are available. So our markets are pretty well regulated. I don't think a runaway futures price is a cause of concern because of the regulatory system. The third one is perception, which is a little difficult to answer. perception comes from people's thinking, may be true or may not be true. And then addressing perception is a policy perspective of the government. I mean, after all, the government, we have elected people to run the government, and therefore there is a certain perception to be addressed, a certain policy to be addressed. So currently the thinking in the policy circle is that maybe you need to control perception because they should not get anchored in the mind of people, and therefore this is a policy which comes in. Having said that, but let me look back. We are just 20 years. 20 years is a very small blip in the timeline. So we are learning. We have to evolve. I think it has been a phenomenal change, because what has happened is the SEBI's taking over the regulatory aspect of commodities trading has brought in a lot of risk management practices which were hitherto absent in the FMC regime. The way I ran the exchange between 2008 and 13 and the way the exchange is being run now, I think there's a world of a difference, and all that goes to the SEBI's excellent risk management practices that have come in. The issues of margins or position limits and all that are by and large the same, but the risk management practices which has been brought in, phenomenal. The change in technology and the robustness in technology infrastructure which SEBI has brought in is phenomenal. There are two aspects to the trading. The one is that or rather, let me put it this way: you require all participants for trading. You require people who are looking at the price and trading. They may not be producers or consumers. You require consumers to come in, producers to come in, you require farmers to come in. So in order to serve the markets well, we do have a policy, but we need to articulate it, and we need to do much more to get the producer into this fold. I think I see a lot of things happening, but we need to enhance it. We need the farmer producer organizations to understand commodity markets, to come into the commodity markets and be a part of these commodity markets in a big way. So unless we get the producers to come and be a participant in these commodity markets, we will not have the physical side of it participating in a big way. See, a taxation essentially is imposing a levy over and above your the transaction value. The argument of the industry is that once you put a levy, the liquidity will dry up. I would not trade. What matters is not the cost of trading, the profit available is what will drive you to trade. Even if you impose a tax, even if you impose a levy, even if your transaction charges are high, as long as I'm going to make a profit in that trade, I will trade. So a tax per se, coming to CTT per se, the tax per se is not a determinant factor for volumes. It's not a determinant factor for liquidity. So this argument that the liquidity will dry down doesn't hold water. When I look back on the CTT part, it went through ups and downs, but now it has come to stay. There are certain spin-off effects of this. One is that the documentation of the transactions which are happening, better control over the way the exchanges have been transacting on this, more accountability which has come into the system. And this small levy, in my view, does not impact at all.